Aeroplanes always compressed people into truth. In the narrow cabin, there was no space to hide class, age, impatience, or prejudice. On this afternoon flight, the aisle smelled of reheated meals and recycled air, and the quiet hum of engines carried unspoken tensions. Row 14 held Mrs. Loretta Brown, an elderly black woman with silver hair tucked neatly beneath a wool scarf. Her hands rested politely in her lap, folded like she had practiced patience her entire life. Loretta had boarded early, moving slowly, assisted by a young gate agent who smiled but rushed her steps. She had thanked him 3 times before reaching her seat. The window beside her showed nothing but cloud, but she liked knowing it was there. It made the journey feel less closed in. She had flown many times before, yet every flight still demanded a small courage she never spoke about. The flight attendant assigned to the cabin, Claire Whitman, adjusted her uniform as she walked the aisle. Her posture was sharp, her movements efficient, her expression permanently tightened by long shifts in shorter tempers. She scanned rows quickly, checking seatbelts, bins, posture, compliance. When she reached row 14, her eyes lingered on Loretta for half a second longer than necessary. Loretta smiled up at her, the way elders often do, a gentle invitation to be kind. Claire nodded without warmth and moved on. The safety demonstration played overhead, ignored by most passengers. Loretta watched carefully, lips moving as she followed instructions she already knew. Habit comforted her. Once the plane leveled, the seatbelt sign chimed off. Carts rattled into the aisle, trays clinked, and conversations slowly returned. Loretta waited patiently as the meal service approached. She had skipped breakfast to avoid rushing, and hunger now sat quietly but firmly in her stomach. When Claire reached her row, she served the younger passengers first. A businessman received his tray without eye contact. A teenage boy got an extra cookie after asking. Then Claire stopped before Loretta. "Meal?" Loretta asked softly, already reaching for her tray table. Claire's eyes flicked over Loretta's cardigan, her worn shoes, the cane leaning against the seat. "We're out," she said flatly. Loretta blinked. "Out of meals?" "Yes," Claire replied, already turning away. Loretta hesitated, confusion clouding her face. "I saw you give meals to the row behind me." Claire turned back sharply. "Those were Loretta nodded slowly. "I didn't know I needed to pre-order. No one told me." Claire sighed, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "Ma'am, there's nothing I can do." The words stung more than the hunger. Loretta's hands trembled slightly as she folded them back together. "Could you check again?" she asked, her voice still polite, still careful. Claire's patience snapped. "I already told you. We're out," she said, her tone rising. "Please don't make this difficult." The aisle grew quiet. The woman across the way looked up from her phone. A man removed one earbud. The air thickened with discomfort. Loretta swallowed. "I'm not trying to be difficult," she said. "I just haven't eaten." Claire leaned closer, her voice sharp. "You should have planned better." The words landed heavy. Loretta's eyes glistened, but she refused to cry. She had learned long ago that tears only confirmed what some people already believed about weakness. A young man seated beside Loretta shifted uncomfortably. He glanced between the 2 women, then cleared his throat. "Excuse me," he said. "I didn't pre-order either, and I got a meal." Claire shot him a warning look. "Sir, please stay out of this." "I'm just saying," he continued. "There's food." Claire straightened, sensing attention. "Sir, airline policy." Another passenger spoke up. "Yeah, I saw extra trays on the cart." Murmurs spread, phones lowered, eyes focused. Claire's face flushed. She glanced toward the galley, then back at Loretta. "Fine," she snapped. "I'll see what I can do." She disappeared down the aisle. Loretta sat still, embarrassed, angry, and tired all at once. Memories surfaced, uninvited. Lunch counters, bus seats, hospital waiting rooms, different places, same feeling. The young man leaned toward her. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "That wasn't right." Loretta smiled faintly. "Thank you for saying something." Minutes passed. The cart did not return. Instead, the purser arrived, an older woman with calm eyes and a practiced smile. "Mrs. Brown?" she asked gently. Loretta nodded. "I understand there was a misunderstanding," the purser said. "We do have meals available, and I apologize for the inconvenience." She handed Loretta a tray, warm and complete. Loretta accepted it with steady hands. "Thank you," she said, meeting the purser's eyes. Claire stood a few steps behind, arms crossed, jaw tight. The purser turned to her. "Claire, we'll speak later." Claire looked away. As Loretta lifted her fork, the cabin slowly returned to its rhythm, yet something had shifted. The quiet agreement to overlook had been broken. Witnesses had spoken. Truth had been seen. Loretta took her first bite, savoring more than the food. It tasted like dignity, like being seen, like a small victory at 30,000 feet. Outside the window, the clouds drifted on, indifferent but beautiful. Loretta watched them and felt lighter. She knew the world would not change overnight, but she also knew that silence no longer owned the sky. The rest of the flight carried a strange stillness, the kind that follows confrontation. Loretta ate slowly, not because she wanted to savor every bite, but because her hand still trembled. Each movement reminded her how easily dignity could be shaken, and how difficult it was to steady again. She thought of her late husband Samuel, who used to say that respect was not something you demanded, but something you defended when tested. Across the aisle, the woman who had been scrolling earlier now watched Loretta with open sympathy. She leaned over. "If you need anything, let me know," she whispered. Loretta nodded, grateful for the simple kindness. These moments, small and fleeting, were the stitches that held her together. Claire remained distant for the remainder of the service. She moved through the cabin stiffly, avoiding eye contact with row 14. Anger simmered beneath her professional mask, anger mixed with something she refused to name. She told herself she had been following rules, that passengers exaggerated, that long shifts justified sharpness, yet the murmurs, the looks, the purser's quiet authority all pressed against her certainty. In the galley, Claire replayed the exchange in her mind. She remembered the way Loretta had asked, the softness in her voice, the patience that had somehow irritated her more than open complaint. Claire wondered, briefly, why that was. She pushed the thought aside, blaming fatigue, blaming policy, blaming anything but herself. Loretta finished her meal and folded the tray away. Hunger eased, but the ache remained. She gazed at the window again, watching sunlight scatter across endless white. Flying always made her reflective. Perhaps it was the altitude, the reminder of how small arguments seemed from above, yet how large they felt when lived. She remembered her first flight decades ago, when segregation laws had just begun to crumble, but attitudes lagged behind. A flight attendant then had spoken to her like a child, loud and slow. Loretta had said nothing, gripping her purse and counting minutes. Silence had felt safer then. Today, silence had been broken by strangers. That difference mattered. The young man beside her introduced himself as Marcus. He was traveling for work, nervous about a presentation, worried about appearing confident. Loretta listened, offering gentle encouragement. "You already sound prepared," she said. "Sometimes courage is just showing up." Marcus smiled. "I learned that from watching you," he replied honestly. The seatbelt sign chimed again as turbulence rattled the cabin. Loretta closed her eyes briefly, breathing through the bumps. Life had taught her balance, how to remain steady when the ground shifted. When the plane smoothed out, she opened her eyes, feeling stronger than before. Toward the back, Claire overheard passengers whispering, not accusations, not outrage, just quiet acknowledgement. She felt exposed. For the first time, she wondered how many moments like this she had dismissed, how many faces she had forgotten as soon as the flight ended. She had always prided herself on efficiency, but efficiency, she realized uncomfortably, could become cruelty when stripped of care. The purser later approached Claire privately. Her voice was calm but firm. "We serve people," she said. "All people. Remember that." Claire nodded stiffly, the words sinking deeper than she expected. As descent began, the captain announced their arrival. Passengers gathered belongings, conversations resumed, tension softened. Loretta reached for her cane, preparing herself. Marcus stood first. "I can help if you want," he offered. "That's kind of you," Loretta said. "But I've got this." She stood carefully, steady despite the long flight. As the line moved forward, Claire found herself face to face with Loretta again. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Claire cleared her throat. "Ma'am," she said quietly, "I'm sorry." Loretta studied her face. The apology was small, imperfect, but real. "Thank you," she replied. "I hope you mean it." Claire nodded. Loretta moved on. In the jet bridge, light poured in. Loretta walked toward it, shoulders straight, heart lighter. The flight would fade into memory, but the lesson would linger. Kindness mattered, speaking up mattered, being seen mattered. Outside, the airport buzzed with life, indifferent yet full of possibility. Loretta blended into the crowd, another traveler with a story the world might never fully hear, but one she carried proudly. And somewhere above, the sky remained vast, holding space for truth, for growth, and for the quiet courage of refusing to be diminished. Loretta paused near a large window overlooking the runway. Planes taxied like patient giants, waiting their turn to rise again. She thought about how many lives crossed paths in these spaces, how easily one careless moment could wound, and how powerfully one brave voice could heal. She hoped the young man would do well in his presentation. She hoped the woman across the aisle would remember to speak up again. She even hoped Claire would carry the discomfort forward and let it change her. For Loretta, the flight became a reminder that age had not erased her worth, and history had not stolen her voice. She had survived harder days, louder injustices, deeper silences. This was only one chapter, but it still mattered. Each chapter did. As she walked toward the exit, her phone buzzed with a message from her granddaughter asking if she had landed safely. Loretta smiled and typed back that she was fine, that the sky had been rough but kind, people had made it smoother. She chose not to explain everything. Some lessons were better shown than told. Behind her, the plane would be cleaned, restocked, reset. New passengers would board, unaware of what had happened in row 14, but traces remained, invisible yet present, like echoes in recycled air. Loretta stepped into the terminal, lifted her chin, and moved forward. She knew tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Still, she felt ready. She had faced the sky and claimed her place within it, unafraid, unbowed, and undeniably seen. She adjusted her scarf and smiled softly. The world kept testing her, yet it also offered chances to answer with grace. Loretta believed quiet stories could still move hearts. Automatic doors opened, releasing a rush of sound and motion. She breathed deeply, grateful for strength, for witnesses, and for moments that demanded courage. Above her, the aircraft would rise again, carrying new passengers, new choices, and lessons waiting to be learned by those willing to notice. Loretta stepped forward without hesitation, knowing dignity was not granted by altitude or uniforms, but by standing firm when tested, trusting that even brief flights could change people, and that tomorrow, somewhere, kindness would be chosen sooner. She carried that hope quietly, like a steady flame, refusing to let past wounds or present slights ever extinguish it completely. Inside her heart,